How's it going? Dave from Comic Book Investments. Well, today we're going to go through the top 10 X-Men comics for investment. Yeah, there might be some other books that go up way more percentage, but I think these will hold the best value for the longest amount of time and get you the most safest return on your money. So let's get started. All right, let's go into number 10. We got X-Men 12. This is the first appearance of the Juggernaut. We'll take an example of a 6.0. The average currently is about 1662. In 2016, the average was about 312. And in 2011, the average for a 6.0 was $134. In 5 years, that would return you 433%. And in 10 years, that would return you 1,140%. And if you look down here at the bottom, you can see that I have the 10-year returns for the Dow Jones, S&P 500, Amazon, and Apple. Amazon and Apple are usually this massive stocks that everyone, thinks are just amazing in the last 10 years. And as you can see, the 10-year return on the Juggernaut has beat pretty much all except Amazon. Like I said, Amazon is one of the best stocks in the last 10 years. So I like to compare these comics to traditional stocks. But as you can see, compared to the Dow Jones S&P 500, just this comic just blows it out of the water. Down over here on the right, you can see they had the most highest ever paid was a 9.8 back in 2019 for $43,000. All right, let's move on to number 9. Number 9, we got Wolverine Limited number 1. And currently, you can pick one up in a 9.8 for about $875. In 2016, 5 years ago, a 9.8 was worth on average about $445, and then 10 years ago, it was worth about $162. This is for a 9.8. Your 5-year return is looking at about 97%. Your 10-year return is looking at 440%. And of course, you got the Dow Jones and all that. So it doesn't beat Apple, doesn't beat Amazon, but it does nearly double the S&P 500 and also almost 3 times the Dow Jones. And a record sale over on the bottom right, you'll see, was a 10.0. Yes, there's 3 that exist in a 10.0. Sold for a little over $15,000 back in 2009. What is that worth today? If I had to guess, probably, you're looking at like 60 to 80,000, somewhere in there for a 10.0 of this book. Yeah. And normally I was a little iffy on this book, but over the years what's happened is a lot of people want a Hulk 181, which is the first appearance of Wolverine, but they can't quite get it. So then they'll go for a Hulk 180, but that's still out of reach of a lot of people. But this still is within reach for people. And so I think a lot of people go to this because this is when he started his first solo series. All right, moving on to number 8. We got X-Men 129. This is the first appearance of Kitty Pryde. And currently, a 9.4 is sitting at about $960. 5 years ago, that was $144. And in 2011, it was $96. This book's been going up like crazy. 5-year return of 567%, a 10-year return of 900%. And that, of course, beats Apple. And it doesn't really come close to Amazon, but still, Amazon is a powerhouse. Our record sale was a 9.8 sold for a little over $10,000 this year. And the reason why I put this on the list is because Kitty Pryde is a very, very popular X-Men. All right, moving on to number 7. X-Men 120. And this, of course, is the first appearance of Alpha Flight. They had their first full appearance in the next issue at 121. But a 9.4 is going to run you about $552. And 5 years ago, that was $265. And 10 years ago, that was $101. You're looking at a 5-year return of 108%, a 10-year return of 447%. Now, I had a record sale of in a 9.8 grade at about $10,500 this year. And the reason why I put this book on here is Alpha Flight went on to make their own series, which ran for a long, long time, super popular, and it's definitely deserves to be on this top 10 X-Men key list. All right, moving on to number 6. We got X-Men 94. And this is the start of the new X-Men in their series. If you know, before this, like issue 93, from 67 to 93, they just did reprints. Because the problem was they thought, X-Men books weren't really selling that well. And so they didn't know what to do with it, but they didn't want to get rid of it. So they started making new covers for it, but then doing just reprinting older issues, the first Banshee, X-Men 28, and so on and so forth. But here comes Chris Claremont and Dave Cockrum to really start solidifying their amazing run that they had, and this is where they start. So this, of course, is a very, very big key in the X-Men comic line. So a 9.0 is going to run you about $3,100. 5 years ago, that was $768, and 10 years ago, it was $664. 5-year return of 308%, 10-year return of 372%. Now, for the longest time, this comic kind of sat around the same. So if you look between the 5-year and 10-year return, not much happened. And it always held its value, but it always kind of just, didn't really go up that much. But now I think it's actually getting this due service that it deserves. It had a record sale of a 9.8 this year for $63,000. Definitely one of the best keys to have in the X-Men. And also, I just think a solid investment. This comic book is... All right, moving on. Number 5. We got X-Men 266, first appearance of Gambit. Now, 9.8 is going to run you about $1,071 currently. And 5 years ago is going to run you about $362, and then 10 years ago, $168. 5-year return of 196%, a 10-year return of 538%. It had a record sale in a 9.9. Yes, a 9.9 exists of this year for $26,351. Now, this list doesn't mean which ones go up the most percents. This list is more of these are good, solid investments that are going to continue for a long, long, long time. Yeah, you could probably pick up a book that's maybe like $50, $100 now, and then it could like triple, quadruple in price in the next couple of years. And yes, that would be more percentage, But these are solid, good keys, solid, good investments for long term. All right, number 4. X-Men number 4. Man, that worked out. This is the first appearance of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. And a 5.0 is currently going to run you about $4,500. 5 years ago, that would have been $1,056, and 10 years ago, it would have been $350. 5-year return of 332%, 10-year return of 1,203%. So getting up there, almost hitting Apple's or Amazon stock level. A record price of a 9.8 sold in 2012 for $26,290. Now, obviously, this book has been going up like crazy because Scarlet Witch is huge in the MCU. This is a good book to have, and I would definitely recommend this long term because the Scarlet Witch is going to be around for a long time. You also have Magneto. It's an earlier X-Men, so it has a lot of things going for it. Number 3. You're looking at X-Men 101. This is obviously the start of the Phoenix saga, which has been very, very popular. They've tried many, many times to get it right in the movies. Can't seem to get that formula right. But this is pretty much the best, one of the most famous storylines out there for the X-Men. A 9.4 is going to run you about $1,994 currently. And what I did with the currently stuff is I averaged the current month. All these are averages. So like in 2016, a 9.4 went for $433. That's the average for the whole year. But the current ones is the average for the current month that we're in. And then 10 years ago, a 9.4 would sell for $294. That's a 5-year return of $361, a 10-year return of 578%. So not as high as the other ones, but I think this is a better book as term investment. A record sale of $9,000 for a 9.8 sold in 2021. All right, moving on to number 2, giant size X-Men #1. And of course, this is the first appearance of the new X-Men. So, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm, Thunderbird, who later died in a couple issues later. And then an early appearance of Wolverine. Wolverine obviously first appeared in Hulk 181. So this is like a massive, massive key that any X-Men fan, that if they have the money, is going to get. This is very popular. In 2021, a 9.4 can run you about $14,400, so a lot. 2016, 5 years ago, about $2,354. 10 years ago, you're looking about $1,300. That's a 5-year return of 512%, and a 10-year return of a little over 1,000%. A record sale, a 9.8 sold a few months ago for $72,000. Yes, this is definitely a must get. When I suggest books to people, if someone comes to me and is like, what's the best for investment? I usually say give them a few different keys, and this one is always on that list. You got your Hulk 181, Fantasy 15, and you got your giant size X-Men #1, and you got a few others, but this is always on that list I tell people to get. This is a great book to have long term. If you guys follow my channel, you know that I'm holding a bunch of these back as well because I think they're just great for long-term investment. So finally, we are at our number 1. I bet you guys can guess what it is. But before I show you my number 1, if you could do me a favor, hit that little subscribe button down below. It really helps out the channel. And let's go into the number 1. And of course, it is X-Men #1, 1 and 1. So this year currently this month, you're looking at about, for 4.0, you're looking at about $15,600. 5 years ago, in 2016, it averaged $2,950. And then 10 years ago, it averaged for the year $1,550. That is a 5-year return of 429%, a 10-year return of 906%. So much. It has a record sale in this year, 2021, a 9.6 sold for $807,300. If you're collecting X-Men and you want for investment, this is the book to have if you can afford it. All these other books on the list are obviously great buys to get as well. So there you have it, the top 10 X-Men comics for investment. Let me know what you think. Put in the comments below maybe some other X-Men comics that you think should have made this list. And have a great rest of the day.